The gray area. The gray area. The gray area.
All right. Anyway, welcome back to the Gray Area podcast once again. I'm with the impossible Phoenix from PhoenixTV. As always, our editor, go check out his stuff at PhoenixTV for fuck's sake. Yeah, he's got me flustered, folks. I'm sorry. Today, yes, launching nukes over there without my consent or permission. Anyway, I'm here with my buddy Jack. Jack is a beautiful human being, former poli-sci major at a local college. Beautiful mind, beautiful wordsmith. He wrote some shit so good the other day I had to take my underwear and burn them because I menstruated in them. But anyway, yeah, here's Jack. Say hi, Jack.
Howdy, guys. Thanks for having me.
So today on the show, I want to ask Jack, why do people hate Americans? Can you answer that for me?
Well, I can try. I think there's probably a lot of reasons that are possibly a good answer.
Okay, why do people hate Americans, Jack?
One of the first things that comes to my mind would be the sense of entitlement that we have, the amount of ignorance and laziness that comes with being a modern-day American, the fact that we really don't know much about our own country, so little so that most of us don't even care to vote, and we have the arrogance to believe that we are number one, so much that we will say that over and over again. That coupled with the fact that we believe we were so right that we want to shove it down everyone else's throats, I think really that would rub me the wrong way. So I think that's a pretty large factor in the fact that people really despise us as a nation, as tourists, just as people altogether. And the unfortunate thing would be that many of us are lumped into this category when we don't necessarily fall into the category.
Yeah. But do you think that there's some amount of fuckery that's been perpetrated in our name? Do you think I would argue that maybe history has shown that we've done a lot of things to piss a lot of people off in our name. As you said, regardless of whether that's what we would have done as a populace or what we would have agreed with.
Right.
Private entities perpetrated a lot of horrific shit through government roles and activities and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely agree. 110%. It's just, if you look back at certain times in history, there's things that we did that were incredibly great, things that were noble. Our activity in the world wars was to liberate a people that were being eradicated, by a dictator. And, regardless of his reasons, we knew that it wasn't right for these people to die, and we stepped in. That's something that's commendable. But when you go to all the things that we do simply for the name of profit, the exploiting of people, treating people like they are expendable, you look at sweatshops all around the world, the fact that we outsource jobs to, which in the end hurt our economy, just to make a little bit of a bigger profit, that's very despicable. You go back to the BP oil spill, and there are records showing that they weren't given permission to drill where they did. They were told by scientists that the depths were too strong, that their equipment wasn't ready for it, and they did it anyway. And because of that, we destroyed an entire ecosystem. That type of ignorance is so extreme, all in the name of profit once again, and coupled with the fact that I believe the maximum penalty for them to pay from Congress, the maximum penalty that any business entity is supposed to pay is only about $180 million. Which doesn't even come close to the damages that we did to the environment all around the Gulf Coast. Just things like that we've done and we continue to do every day. It makes you wonder, why do you endorse such a thing? And that's the problem, is that so many people, as I said, are so ignorant to these facts that they will say that we are the best, we're the biggest. And we may have the baddest military, but that doesn't.
A lot of the stuff is the ostrich with its head in the sand.
Yeah,
I believe the people down there in the Gulf would probably have a lot stronger opinion than you or I, because I mean, I haven't been a part of it, I haven't seen it. Now, I'm not saying that justifies, the ignorance, but at the same time, I know if I couldn't go swimming on my favorite beach, or I couldn't eat the fish caught out of the ocean from there, I'd be more inclined to be more pissed off.
A little bit more outspoken, maybe.
Definitely.
I agree, and that's a lot of the problem. Is that, I mean, we are a large nation, and even today with our just immense amount of technology to get word out, the media is everywhere. It's just, you can't even trust that. You never know who's going to manipulate it one way or another to further their agenda.
Oh, it's slanted.
Exactly, and that's the problem. People will read something and believe right away that it's true. And especially if it corresponds with their already stable beliefs in their head. If that's like, oh wow, this is exactly what I've been saying, so here we go, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. And then
it's amazing how that works. Like, getting off topic, like the shit that Orson Welles pulled back in the day with the alien invasion. He got on the radio and started perpetrating an alien invasion, and people just started, heading for the hills and freaking out because everybody just thought yep, that's it.
This is it, right?
Yeah.
That's true. It's all, and that was meant to be a big joke, but still, it may have been good radio. But like you said, people will believe anything. And granted, in that time, I understand maybe why they, hey, better safe than sorry. I can feel that. But it's just the way that we treat things, the way that, when we go back to the 9/11 attacks, and then all of a sudden every single Muslim in our nation was treated as a terrorist. I've seen these people look so beaten down and so sad, and it breaks my heart inside, because I just want to kind of give them a hug. Like, it's going to be all right. You're not the first people to be, subjugated and stereotyped and just treated like you don't matter because of somebody else's mistakes. Especially when so many things have come to the surface saying that most likely we had a lot to do with our destruction, 9/11 attacks. And
yeah, that was definitely shared, in my opinion.
For sure.
You look at how many foreign bases. We're basically occupying other sovereign nations right now.
Very true.
Some of them are more upset about us being there than others, but still, do we have that right to even not? And if we're there, we're obviously doing something. There's a reason why we're there, or we wouldn't be there. I know, like over in Germany, we have the Army keeps nukes sitting out in silos over in Germany. There's no telling what the hell we're doing with our posts out in the Middle East and whatnot.
Right.
And this isn't assumed knowledge, by the way. I was in the military, and I know of or seen a lot of these different posts. You think about it, how many countries have a base in America?
That's a good point.
Do you know of any?
Zero.
Does China or whoever pick one? Does anybody else have a base in America?
Because we've got it all figured out, man.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody else's help.
Yeah.
We know everything.
Yeah. At best case scenario, we're trying to play world police. That's
right.
Best case scenario.
Right.
Worst case scenario, we're
furthering agenda.
Yes, we're furthering agenda.
Keeping our hands in the oil pots and making sure, a lot of it would be, I guess, we want to say, like you said, we're playing security, making sure that things aren't, making sure things are on the up and up. But like you said, who's doing that for us?
Yeah.
Where's our checks and balances? Yeah. Because where it's supposed to be is absolutely ass backwards.
Yeah, this is not our world.
No,
it's definitely not our world. We may think it is, or we may think that we're, Father knows best, but it's not. I would argue that's not necessarily the case.
Right. And who's to say that our Western way of thinking, our modernized way of thinking is better than, just a simple tribe who has been living peacefully for thousands of years. Who's to say that just because we have a smartphone and we're able to record on a laptop, that we know better, that we have it all figured out. Obviously, if the end game is surviving, then maybe we don't. Maybe we're the ones that need to be taught a couple of things. Maybe we need to learn what it's like to live in harmony with not only ourselves and the people around us, but nature. Yeah. It seems like that's always put on the back burner, which is unfortunate because, as we spoke about earlier, everything is finite. It may be infinite in a degree, but not in our lifetime. So it's not going to be something that's restorable or renewable. And
there's a definite gap between knowledge and wisdom. We have access. We have knowledge on tap. I mean, we can just turn on the Google faucet and it'll just pour out, and we can drink that up. But wisdom, that's something we're still trying to figure out. And I think there's a lot of factors in play that may be stifling that.
Right.
I mean, our whole red and blue bullshit that we got going on, and from politics to the fucking reality TV show, it's stuff to keep us confused. It's stuff to keep us pacified. And maybe these things are working in conjunction. Maybe they're not. I don't know.
Right.
I wouldn't be smart enough to weave that blanket together. But it's definitely, whether on purpose or not, we have a whole lot of shit in this country that kind of either keeps us confused or keeps us pacified and well away from,
real issues.
Yeah.
I agree 110%. Even when doing the research, it's hard to figure out what's going on. So when you're absolutely ignorant, when you're absolutely okay with not knowing, or you don't care to try, you're never going to know. And when you're told it, it's just going to be like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't know who to believe. Even your sources of information, when it comes to real hardcore stuff, I mean, there's things at play here. Like this news organization says, this guy did this to the other guy. Well, the other news organization says, well, no, this guy did this to the other guy.
Exactly.
Who are you going to believe? I mean, and there's tons of that out there. You have to sift through all that before you can even find the correct answer to problem A.
Right.
To even try to utilize the aforementioned wisdom to move forward on the same subject.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's I want to say that it's possible to get people to wake up to understand the things that we do that anger others, but really it just comes down to our arrogance and our ego once again, our inability to be told that we're wrong. The fact that everyone is, not even everyone, even now in a country divided, there's still so many that just want to believe that we are doing things right and that we're not being lied to. But it's just, the evidence is insurmountable. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Well, it's a comfort thing, man. Could you imagine believing, the whole apple pie and red, white, and blue thing is infallible? Could you imagine coming up with that idea? And people do this, but, coming up with that ideal, all your life, and just to have the veil lifted and like, no, there's some flaws in some of this. Some of this is pretty and nice and shiny and polished, but some of this has led to some bad things in this world.
That's very true. The shock that would come over people, especially like I think of my family members. They're good people, but they're blinded. They've been indoctrinated in one way or another, if not always, and they were brought up that way. So it's so hard to shake that belief. And when you come at them with an open mind, if you're any type of free thinker, it's almost like they look at you as a Satanist, or some kind of devil or demon. And it's like, well, no, all I'm simply doing is questioning what I've been told. I'm being skeptical. I'm being curious. And these things are very, very necessary in our world where we have so many problems. And we never, one thing my brother said to me the other night was, he got in an argument with somebody, and their whole point was, well, why would Obama lie? Why would our government lie to us? It doesn't make any sense. And Jeff said, I've had people that I love and I trust more than anybody in this world lie to me. Yeah. What makes you think that someone that has never met you, that doesn't even know you exist, wouldn't lie to you? You know, especially if it was to help their family, was to benefit them. You know, and when it comes down to it, that's just instinct. That's animalistic instinct to take care of yours before someone else's. And you know, it's I don't know, it's just sad. But one of the things that really get me about Americans in general, which this is probably, you know, a lot of other countries. Now, this is my ignorance shown a little bit because I haven't explored the rest of the world. I haven't gotten to travel yet. But we have so many different religions, so many denominations out there, and so many of them are offshoots of another one in one way or another. We're like, you got it right. Let's tweak this, you know. You know, and I mean, that stuff comes from men. It comes from men and women who decide things, you know. But they believe it so much so that when you sit 30 people in a room and every one of them has a contradicting belief, and they'll sit there and argue tooth and nail that you're wrong because you're an atheist, and I've been through this, and I say, I hear you, buddy. Bye. You leaving? Bye. And I say to them, so if you believe this, then you believe you're going to heaven. And the answer is always, well, yeah, you know. Okay, so you believe that everyone else, if everyone else here has a different view, so you believe that everyone else here got it wrong and they're all going to hell. That's what you believe. That you got it right, that you figured it out at whatever age you are, it doesn't matter, be it 17, be it 40, you've got it figured out, everyone else is wrong, and that you're going to heaven and they're going to hell. And that's the way we treat everyone else in the world. Not only our own people, but everyone else in the world. But you guys are fucked up. You shouldn't believe in multiple gods. You know, you worshiping false idols. And who's to say we're not worshiping a false idol? Who's to say that, you know, the whole Ten Commandments thing isn't a joke? I mean, it has good morals, but why do you need, like Bo Burnham said, you don't need 1,000 analogies to learn how not to be a dick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, exactly. Be a good person. It's that simple. Common sense dictates that. You know, it goes to malum and say and malum prohibitum. You know, malum and say is something that is wrong in itself. If you murder someone, you don't need someone to be like, well, that's wrong. You know that's wrong to take someone's life. When it comes to things known as the Latin term is malum and say, which is something that is wrong in itself.
I tried to quote that shit the other day, and I totally screwed it up. I called it Carlos Mencia or something like that.
That's my legal studies, my minor. That's where I got all that. Is the you know, where we get all our laws and things from. But malum say is something wrong in itself. You don't need somebody to say you shouldn't murder people. You don't need someone to tell you you shouldn't rape people or that you shouldn't steal. Or that you shouldn't. You know, these things are inherently wrong because you shouldn't do them because you are hurting someone else to further yourself, and that's just not the way we should be. Especially if we want peace. Especially if we want a state of tranquility. You know, even. Those things are just you shouldn't have to explain that to people, you know, and that's just elaborating on what Bo Burnham said, what a lot of people have said, you know, and then malum prohibitum is just simply things that we are told are wrong. We're said, you know, we're told you can't go over 45 miles per hour, and it's wrong if you do so. When really it's not wrong. It's just that's a rule that we have to follow, being a part of a society. You know, and those things, you know, okay, they have a place. I understand that. But you don't need someone to tell you that you shouldn't stab somebody in the neck. That's something that we don't need a God to scare us with hell to not do those things. But when it comes to if you want to safely go out and have a beer with your friends and enjoy a good conversation, you shouldn't be treated poorly because you wanted to have a beer, whether it's Sunday night or Monday night or whatever night it is. You know, same thing with smoking weed. You know, it's a plant, and even if you are a Bible thumper and you believe that God created everything, what do you think? He just put it in your temptation? You know, I mean, just saying, you know, it just makes sense. You know, so many people, I guess, you know, you go back in time far enough to where these things were written down, you know, it's just one man saying, I don't think this should be happening, so I'm going to say that it shouldn't happen, you know, whether or not he had some kind of spiritual experience or not. You know, and that's where it all comes from. It all comes into what I've always believed is that it's a misperception of something that we couldn't understand at that time. What someone believes as angels coming down and speaking to them in their dreams. I mean, this is going way out there, but it could be an alien abduction. It could be anything of that nature. But really, that's besides the point. The whole thing is the man decided what to leave or what to put in and what to leave out. What should go in and what should be against the law, and then other people furthered that and then furthered it, and then it, you know, editing was made and done and everything else, and then here we are today with modern Bibles, and people believe it as the gospel, as in this is God's words, and then we shout it to the rooftops. Then we tell everyone else in the world that they're fucked up and that they shouldn't believe in anything else. Now, I'm not saying that.
Now,
Go ahead.
I'll offer the ulterior possibility as well here. Now, a lot of people, because I think there's a lot of evidence that supports because somebody's grandfather got screwed over by the United States, then perpetuates that all Americans are bad. You know, they hand that down to their kid, and their kid teaches their kid, you see an American, they're bad.
Right.
Best case scenario, you don't like them or trust them. Worst case scenario, you see this cat, you shoot him in the head.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that there's the gray area.
Right.
Getting back into the gray area, I'm not saying that what we did was right, but perpetuating that all Americans or all Western civilization in some cases is wrong and bad and evil. That's not right either.
Right.
But we might have started the snowball, but now it's turned into an avalanche.
You're right. That's a very good point, because that is the way it is. That's the way bigotry and racism goes. It's taught, and that's a sad thing. You know, I do believe that if you don't teach history, it will repeat itself. But if I was never told that the guy sitting next to me was a black man who descended from Africa, I would have never looked at him as a black man.
Yeah.
That's my point. You know, that he was just a friend. And that's the way I still look at it. I refuse to see color in that way. But those things that we teach kids, it's just, that's all it is. I mean, I went to school with plenty of people who were very, very, what's the word? Outspoken racist, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sickening. You know, people that I played football with that I was, you know, supposedly in a brotherhood with. And I just, you know, it's like, man, you really should tone that down, because this is just another human being.
But a lot of that comes back from perpetuation. I mean, They weren't born that way. They were taught.
Exactly. Yeah, they were taught to hate them. Just like, I mean, you see animals the same way. That they're trained to hate certain types of people, and it's sad because, you know, that type of hatred, that type of distrust is very. It's not very becoming of anybody that wants to further humanity in any positive way.
And I would argue, I think that we've probably got we've got further to go getting away from those things than maybe some other developed nations do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always that, you know, certain people have that trump card of saying, oh, this happened, you know. But even going back into history, I mean, it really, not to get into the whole religion game too much, more than we already have, but no one's had it worse than the Jews in every aspect of history. I mean, they've been treated poorly in just about every century. They've been enslaved or a genocide or something or other.
If you look back far enough, I think you'll find everybody has been a slave, not you or I, obviously, but all groups of people have spent some amount of time in slavery, definitely indentured servitude, and some would argue that we're still in that today. But that's getting off. That's a subject for another show.
That's a good point, though. That's a good point. Yeah, I would agree. Oh, man. Why people hate Americans. So many reasons. I would like to touch on the way we raise our kids.
You think that has something to do with it?
I would say that it has a part to play in a small degree. I would say, for one, the amount of freedom that we give definitely angers a lot of people, but really it's what we do with that freedom that I think that pisses people off. Stuff that, you know, what I say to people a lot, like how I ended that whole conflict with my friends earlier, was I have bigger things to worry about than what you guys say on this damn video game. Yeah. Because that's true. And that's the thing, is we put so much, you know, you see it. I see it as the way I was raised, you know, even with my father telling me, you know, treat women with respect, you know, never be, you know, even my dad had so many flaws, way too many to get into, but, you know, we all do. But anyway, he was, you know, had addictions to drugs and all these other things, but he always tried to teach me the good things, you know, that, you know, you treat people fairly, you treat them with respect. If someone needs help, you lend a hand, you know, because that's what you would want. And that's what I've gotten in return a lot of times, which is nice. But we bring our kids up nowadays in so many families. It's just like, you know, and it's not even necessarily the parents doing it, but media teaches guys to treat women like they're shit, like they're objects, like they're just a notch, and that's how they're treated. And the girls it's all beaten into their heads that they're never good enough, that they're never this, that they're never that they can't be perfect.
That one's really ugly.
It's a bad thing.
I see that one a lot more, I feel, perpetuated than with the guys objectifying women. We do. I see it. I see the evidence, but the amount of shit that gets thrown on women, this is what you got to look like. This is what you got to look like. This is what you got. I'd argue that it's harder for Melissa McCarthy, if I'm saying her name right, to exist in in that whole world of entertainment and to be looked upon like that. It's harder for her to exist than I would say Zach Galifianakis to exist.
I would agree, and she's forced to play the role that she plays. She's forced to be the funny fat girl.
Yeah,
that's what she will always be, unless she changes herself physically, which is a damn shame because she may be a very beautiful person on the inside, and that will never be. You know, obviously, someone someday is going to love her.
She's married. She's got it.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know. I know jack shit about it, but I know she's married and her husband appears in some of her films.
Okay. So that shows you right there that someone can appreciate someone for who they are. But that's just like you said, it's a damn shame that people are treated that women are treated that way, to raise to believe that they have to be insecure because they can't reach that Giselle perfection. And to me,
I would argue that that's not a perfection. but I mean, that's subjective, though. I believe that women are portrayed to starve themselves.
Exactly, and that's not good.
Now, granted, I can identify that. Okay, yes, this size may not be healthy, but goddamn it, you cannot tell me that those models who are starving to death are not. That's not healthy either.
No,
they are deficient of some shit.
Yeah. And this is a little off topic, but there's nothing sexier to me than a woman who's comfy or comfortable in their own skin, who is comfortable with who they are. Yeah. And you know, they don't have to be super out there with it, like, oh, I'm this and I'm that. But just the fact that they don't have to say that, and that they don't have to be all insecure every time a joke is made, that's a beautiful thing, because that's someone who has transcended our way of manipulating women. And that, you know, to take it back around to the original point, is just, you know, these things are what people see about us. They see our fashion week. They see our, you know, all these like, oh, everything's about video games and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, there's so many things going on in the world. The fact that we live in a throwaway culture where kids don't care about a damn thing, you know, that, you know, and I mean, I feel like it's getting worse with the generations, to be honest, because all our kids have cell phones now. Everybody has everything at the access of a button. And it's just, that's what people see. They see us just absolutely focusing on all these wrong things, when, you know, we've got a small minority of people actually caring about the fact that there's people starving all over the world, that people are enslaved, that there are people still being killed everywhere, every day. And, you know, I mean, if we really were world police, if we really were out there to help people and not further our own agenda, then those are the places we would be. The places that absolutely give us no monetary gain, but we're still going to go there because it's the right thing to do, even if it puts us in the hole. Now, obviously, everything works like a business these days, which is unfortunate. We're all run by money. You know, the whole cream, cash flows, everything.
Even if you don't want to be, you're stuck in it.
It's true. You can't. I mean, you can't hope to have kids and give them any sense of a normal life, which, once again, normality is very overrated. But still, any sense of a comfortable life where they can grow up and have, you know, opportunities. Any form of opportunity driven life is going to have to be following the grain, following society, making money, working your ass off, you know. And I think about it all the time.
And that's getting worse and worse
very
and
much
worse
so.
in this country.
Very much so.
It's something I want to cover on another show is, you know, the standard work week in Europe is nothing compared to what our standard work week is on the average. I think the Netherlands, their standard work week, the average work week that a Dutch person works is 29 hours is the average. And that's without sacrificing benefits and stuff. Which in turn, this helps perpetuate our ignorance, because we don't have the time, the energy, or anything with mom and dad both working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, just trying to get ahead, or held just trying to maintain in some circumstances. They can't. They don't have time to be informed.
That's a good point. And even further, you know, who's raising the kids? The media, you know, the school teachers, and that goes into another thing is our education system is shit. You have to pay so much to get a decent education. Otherwise, I mean, there's some good public school teachers out there. There are, but for the most part, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many public school teachers I had that were 23, 24, and maybe they had good intentions going into it, but by the end of the semester, we were all sitting around watching MTV. You know, and that's just it. It's just a joke, you know. And like I said, it's not every one of them. You can't just judge them all the same way. You can't lump them all in the same category. But
well, they get treated the way they get treated in this country.
It's a good point.
Is shitty,
right?
I mean, like in France, a school teacher earns 3 times as much as what they earn here.
And that's
but now, granted, they're held to. They're required to go through more education than what they do in this country, but they're also. I mean, I don't want to say they're revered, but they're much more respected.
Right.
In other nations, particularly throughout Europe and in France. I've read some shit on France.
But that's what it should be. You should hold people to a higher standard, because especially people that are the ones who control your future, essentially, because you are molding these minds. You are the one pretty much deciding, especially in a situation like we just talked about, where the parents are gone so much. You know, they don't want to be. I don't want to work freaking 55 hours a week, hanging metal on metal with pieces of freaking metal while my son sits at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to do that, but you have to. You know, but like you said, you know, in that situation, the teachers need to hold themselves accountable. They need to be the ones that are like, all right, little Johnny or baby Jack, like, you can't do these things. You know, not because there's some crazy reason, but because it's just wrong to do it. Because you need to be a better person. Because this is why, you know.
How did we remove teachers from so far away from doctors in that regard?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm sure there's some arguments to be made, the education levels and whatnot, but still, one might argue that they both play, similar important roles.
Oh, 100% agreed. I mean, almost. Doctors are very important, but I would argue that teachers play a more important role, because once again, I mean, what's worth saving if they're all uneducated, lazy assholes?
That's true. I mean, that's very true.
I mean, I'm just saying, you know, it's just, you know, we have to, somewhere the line has to be drawn to say, well, you're not good enough. It's not that you're not good enough, but you don't try hard enough. You know, I remember going to elementary school. I can remember every one of their names. I can remember which ones were good, caring teachers that taught me and held me accountable. And then getting up right around the time I was ending middle school, junior high, and then going through high school, and I had so many teachers who did not care. There were teachers that still cared, that tried, that wanted you. But even those teachers would let exactly. But even those teachers would let the occasional person that they thought was just a lost cause sleep in the back of the class. It's like, no, you hold that person accountable. You get them the hell out of here. Don't let them drag anyone else down. You know, and even then, it's a bad decision to make. But you've got to do what's best for the greater good if you ever want to make any strides. And even that has, you know, kind of ethical consequences, but.
Well, I would argue we've moved so far away from our initial topic, but I would argue, because I was that kid. I was that little bastard in the back of the class, just like, and some of them be like, "You're not allowed to sleep in here. I'm going to sleep anyway."
Right.
Well, go to the office. Well, come on, I'll show you. I've been there more times than you have. I was that little shit. Right. That was me.
Right.
But I would argue that, you know, the way we teach, and, you know, the way we approach education in general maybe could be advanced.
More hands-on, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't given it a lot of thought. I'm definitely not an authority on the subject, but I know there are schools out there. I know there's a couple in California that once the kids reach, I think it's a high school age, once they've gotten past some of the basic stuff, they start getting them more gravitating away from knowledge's sake and more into a practical application. Like, okay, this engineering group over here, what do you guys want to make?
Right.
You want to make a robot. well, I guess you need to learn how to make a robot.
Right.
Well, and it's they actually work on something and build something, and then they take this something and they show it off, and they've gained all this knowledge towards a practical application, and they're vested in it, and that's their education. That's not like, okay, they're not just doing that part time and then going to English class for English sake,
right?
And they're actually yeah. And again, you know, I know they have some healthcare programs like that, you know, gearing people towards that.
Right.
And they learn all the things they need to learn, be it mathematics or be it chemistry or be it whatever, gearing themselves towards their interest. I mean, they're not forced into this. They have to do something, but they can start gravitating towards something, and they can see where this math has a practical application. They can see where this chemistry has a practical application. I think that's a really revolutionary approach. I think that's the way to. There's a quote about you tell me I forget, but I'm gonna fuck it up, so I won't even say it. Basically, if you involve a person, they know it,
right?
They own it,
right? That's good.
Versus I can just tell you 1 + 1 = 2, and you're like, okay, yeah, 1 + 1 = 2 for the test, and then you throw it away and never. Maybe think about it at a glance, like, why the fuck did I need to know that?
Right. I think you made a good point that that's actually pretty, like you said, a revolutionary idea. Teach someone the basics and then let them go where they want to go with it. Mm-hmm. You know, what's the point of pounding geometry and algebra into someone's head who really isn't that strong in math and has no interest in it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, why waste a whole year on something when you could be learning something like that maybe you are interested in? And who's to say that you couldn't further that field down the line? Because really, I mean, you know, math is maybe a bad example because math is in everything, you know. But it's just those types of things. There's not a reason to shove it down everyone's throats because there are people who just genuinely. Math was always my hardest subject. I always made great grades in everything, but math, I had to work hard to get an A. Science, English, writing, all those things cake to me. Mm-hmm. But math, I struggled with. And, you know, not that I'm saying I wouldn't want to have taken it, but when I got to college, for example, I didn't take a single math class. Not one, you know, and you know, that's just, you know, I think it's a good thing.
I think, but depending on what you're going for, you should have a working knowledge of how to operate in daily life,
right?
And then past that, if it's not what you're passionate about, it should not be forced upon you.
I agree.
Because if we're all working towards our truest self, then, you know, we're gonna naturally gravitate to the information that we need to complete who we want to be and where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to make us all, you know, we are going to differentiate in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going back to the main point where, you know, education plays a large part in how people perceive Americans. You know, I don't understand how, I don't really know anybody who ever's taught in, say, Japan, but the education there is held to a much higher standard. And the results are absolutely astronomical compared to ours, you know, and people like that look at us and probably laugh when we say we're better than when we say we're smarter, when we say we got to figure it out. You know, I'm just saying that's, you know, where it all comes from, that, you know, that education, it does mean a lot. And I mean, especially the last couple of generations, some kids just don't care about it. They don't want to learn, you know, and that comes, a big part of that, it comes from our media, the fact that, you know, and I'm a big fan of hip hop. I enjoy hip hop, but it breeds this social stagnatism, this I just want to be a rapper and fuck bitches and get money, and, you know, if you don't like it, I'll fucking shoot you. You know, like, there is no fist fight and everything's cool anymore. You get your ass beat, sometimes you're coming back and you're getting shot, and that's a sad world we live in.
Well, I would argue that there's different levels of that. There's cats like ideas and abilities who are actually talking about something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They got some shit to say.
I agree.
Versus other individuals who are just like, get money, fuck bitches.
Egotistical.
Yeah, that's it.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of people actually.
And that exists throughout all music, not just hip hop, but you can find that in almost any genre.
Yeah, I would agree. Hip hop's just the one that's is very blatant. You know, you got people like I was even a fan of Lil Wayne growing up, but that dude literally thinks he's the end all be all, and people believe that.
Yeah.
People believe that. There's a huge group of fans that just think that he's the greatest thing ever. That's their hero, Lil Wayne, to drink a bunch of lean and get real fucked up and put yourself into a coma.
And That's the dude who gets out. That's they don't. I don't know this because I'm not over there watching TV right now, but I would argue that it's easier to find shit and see shit about Lil Wayne or, God forbid, Kanye fucking West in Europe than it is to find stuff on Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Very true. Very good point. Some
people spinning some real shit over here. We got some bad motherfuckers in this country coming up with some badass shit. Some beautiful shit. Some expansive fucking ideas that maybe never been thought about except in science fiction before, and they're working on making some of this shit a reality.
You're right.
Right here, right in this country. And nobody knows about it.
That's a damn good point because you're probably right. Like I said, I'm not over there either, but I bet those are the people that they hear about. Those are the people that are on
Kim Kardashian's ass is way more readily available. I'm just assuming. I don't know. I'm not there, but I'm betting I could see her ass in Europe easier than I could find out about what is that shit I heard about the other day? They're trying to make colonies on the sea.
Right.
Make like land out on the ocean, and it's no bullshit. It's coming. They're working on it. What is it called? Seasteading. And I'm sure this obscure podcast that we got right here is the first that anybody's ever heard of it, or a lot of people anyway. This will be the first time they've ever heard of seasteading, but everybody knows what Kim Kardashian's ass looks like.
Right.
Editor's note. He's not wrong.
That's a good point.
I'm not saying it's a bad ass. I'm not saying it's a good ass. You may not like asses at all. That might be all that you're interested in. But the fact that that's more readily available than some of these other just revolutionary ideas that are out there, it speaks to our level of ignorance.
Right. Definitely.
Whether it be chosen ignorance or whether it be oblivious ignorance, it's still just that. It's ignorance.
Right.
And it makes us look as such.
To differentiate the difference between news and media-driven propaganda is a big deal. And that's something that most people don't even, and that's sometimes it's hard to differentiate between, but sometimes it's very obvious and we just choose not to. And like you said, it's just the amount of things that are portrayed, as important that truly mean nothing. It's ridiculous. Like you said, there's a lot of people that have a lot of good things to say that don't ever get heard, at least not by the vast majority. It's kind of sickening when you think about it, just to consider all the people that maybe they want to learn and don't even know how. And when they reach out, they're just treated as outcasts, as I'm sure you've been treated and I've been treated many times in my life, Really, I've just always been a dreamer and I just always want to think freely and openly, to be open to other ideas. And
you and I are outcasts right now to a lot of groups.
Oh, yeah.
As in our adulthood. I'm 33 years old, and I'm damn near looked on as some type of heretic.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And not in distant circles, people I'm around on a daily basis.
Right. I'd agree. And even within my group of friends, even within my family, I'm treated as if I didn't grow up with them, as if we haven't been together, as if we haven't went through
as
things.
If they don't know what your qualities are. All they see is the difference.
They want to paint you red and toss you out the door. Not necessarily all the time. I'm sure that if I went up there right now to my family, they'd probably give me a hug and they'd feed me and everything else, but I wouldn't be able to go through it without someone giving me an earful about how wrong I was. That's another reason why people can hate Americans. We all just want to stick everything down everyone's throats. We can't live in peace thinking
there couldn't possibly be anything other than apple pie and
can't be
Veterans Day parade,
red, white, and blue. Yeah, that's all that matters to us. It's just so naive and such an immature thought to think that we have it figured out. To think that, and I'm sure a lot of nations are the same way. The reason that we're so hated, I believe, is just it's very media driven. We are the media. We are everywhere. you know, you can't do anything without seeing something about an American or this or that. And, you know, I mean, one could argue that there's plenty of evil all over the world, which there is. I mean, there's plenty of people getting gunned down in Africa and everything else. But when you have to compare us to a third world country that hasn't even gotten close to figured out or set up any type of, you know, governmental regime that holds true to what its originations were, what its roots were. You know, when you have to compare yourself, well, there's more gun violence there. It's like, well, so the fuck what? I mean, does that mean it just like goes back to that whole, you know, you're searching for a utopia society? It's just going to leave you disappointed. Well, just because it may be an impossibility to be perfect, does that mean we shouldn't strive?
Well, goddamn, even if we don't find perfection, why can't we get to the next best thing? That would be pretty good.
Right, get close to it. You know, lead your people 100 yards all the way across the field, and even if they go 50 yards, that's better than them sitting at the start of the field.
Yeah, I don't know anything about baseball.
You know, it's just a leadership analogy, and it's just I don't know, it's frustrating when people look at it that way. Like, you don't understand perfection. It's like, no, I do understand perfection. I understand that it is nothing that can be reached and sustained. I believe that perfection is a moment in time that you work very hard for. And when you get it, you better damn well enjoy it, because it is fleeting and it will be gone. You better sit and enjoy the fact that you reached that moment and that you've got to experience that and that you worked that hard, and credit, maybe pat yourself on the back for a moment. But when it's gone, don't cry about it. Don't wonder why it's gone, because it was always going to be that way. There isn't going to be any world peace where everyone on the earth is happy, where everyone agrees and we're all in harmony. I don't believe that's possible. There's always going to be at least one person pissed off.
Oh, that's beautiful. But even though that's if we could just get people closer to an open mind,
right,
who can accept it, the ability to say, Jack, I don't fucking understand what you're saying, and I don't agree with you,
right,
but I accept you, and I see your value, and I put that above where I see your faults.
right.
Everybody wants to see the negative, and nobody wants to see the positive.
Yeah.
And I think once we collectively, if we can ever collectively get to a point where we can find the good in people, even that we don't agree with, I think that'll be the day. That'll be when we're there.
Yeah, I agree, or at least close to it. I think our main goal. Are you familiar? I think I told you about Shots of All with Jason Silva, the guy I told you about. He is the Brain Games host. Very intelligent.
Yes.
This guy, he does these little episodes. It's the Discovery Channel does it, and they work in collaboration. He's kind of like the guy who's always narrating and talking about it. He's so charismatic and just so good. He's very eloquent and just his ideas are absolutely magnificent. And one of the things he talks about is he's only interested in ideas that break down barriers, that stretch the mind to the point where it can never return to its original state. You know, we should work on, he said, our anthem should be to, we should be only interested in the type of ideas that create a whirlwind, kind of like a cyclone that take us out of our cognitive Kansas. And what he's talking about is a reference to the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. Only something that takes us out of what we know, places us into a world that surrealism is possible, where you can transcend what we've always believed as reality. And that's a beautiful thing, because when we can get there, when we can get our ego out of it, we can stop convincing ourselves that we know everything, and we open our minds up to the fact that there is so much more. That's a day where we can start making strides as not only Americans, whether or not America's still here, who knows, but as humans, you know, and maybe make a push for something else, something better. And maybe transcend all this bullshit and all this profiteering and all this capitalism and, you know, I'm better than you and I deserve more than you and blah, blah, blah. It's just, you know, deep down it should be all about that oneness, that connection that you have, because
all this other stuff is fleeting, man. People don't realize, if you look at history, throughout history, Rome ruled for, I don't know the dates or whatever, but I mean, they were Rome forever, and they ruled a chunk of the known world forever, but they don't anymore. And so just like them, just like the dynasties of China, just like the monarchy of England and their control over the world, all this stuff is fleeting.
Right.
All that stuff is fleeting. Whatever name that we call ourselves, whatever whole entity that we claim to be, I mean, that's all fleeting.
Right. Very true. And everything we're doing right now, sitting on these chairs, eventually be gone.
Mm-hmm.
This table that'll eventually crap out. On this laptop that'll eventually crash. Speaking
Except for Phoenix, he'll be sitting there forever.
Forever. I mean, this is my second iPhone in 2 years. It's going to be gone. I mean, this house will eventually crumble.
And it's revolutionary.
Right?
That thing is a miracle. Mm-hmm. And it is so fleeting.
Right?
We're moving at warp speed. That this is the greatest thing ever. Now it's junk.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is the greatest thing ever. Now it's junk.
Yep. That's true. It's just
we're in hyperdrive, man.
You're right. It's never. I mean, I don't want to say it's never going to stop. I hope that at some point we become comfortable with what we have, and we can make strides still as what we are, and stop focusing so much on what we can have. So,
I was wondering who was talking down here.
Some hairy guy, man.
Yeah.
Some hairy motherfucker.
I invited a bear in.
I know.
You might want to call the police.
Right on.
Yeah, just the thought that we could, just the thought that an idea is something that could break down barriers, that we could just come out of our shell and realize that there's so much more. That that's what ignorance is the plague of. Ignorance is holding us back. That thought that we just know, that we're just like, I know enough, or I don't need to know this, or that I don't believe in this because it can't be true. Like, those things hold us back. They restrict us. They form these walls around us, and everywhere else, the rest of the universe is expanding and changing, and that's change is always happening all around us, and we're sitting here stagnant, swimming, treading water, just chilling, and then it's just it's a horrible thing to me. I see people that are younger than me who don't want to go out and have a good time because they're afraid that their incredibly judgmental Catholic family is going to look down on them. It's like, man, you got one life to live. Even if you guys are right and there's an afterlife and you're going to go to heaven and I'm going to go to hell, then kudos to you for believing in it and that leap of faith. But is that really worth risking your one life on? Is that worth? I'm not saying go out there and stab somebody. Don't do that, but enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Who was I want to say it was Tim Minchin that said, "Isn't this enough?
Right?
That this world isn't all this enough?"
Right. You ever heard the quote, for believers, earth is the closest thing to hell. For non-believers, earth is the closest thing to heaven.
Yeah.
And it's just, everyone, that's what it is. A lot of them look forward to that day where they die and then they get to transcend all this physical realm and they go up and they're with all their loved ones. And that's a beautiful thought. But, man, that's without any proof, that's a lot to invest in, to just go your whole life not enjoying it. To just think, I shouldn't go out tonight. I'm not going to try and sit here and knock religion in church, even though I want to. But if you don't want to go out and hang out with your friends on a Saturday night simply because you got to get up and make it to 9 a.m. mass, like, man, why?
Yeah.
Why? Why? It's not a good enough reason to me. And if I'd like to believe that if there was a heaven and if there was a God as people believe him to be, not as we believe, as people believe him to be, this omnipresent, omnibenevolent, omniscient, omnipotent creature or spirit or whatever, if he really was like that, then why would he ever say, well, okay, here's my chosen people, the rest of you are fucked, and I'm going to condemn to hell everyone who ever questioned anything, and only the people who ever blindly followed rules.
But I love you all.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then to say that, like, I love you anyways. Like, no, like, that's if I was a good person, good shouldn't be tied up in how many times I go to church and how many times I take communion and how many sips of wine I take. That should not have any. Good should be, there's plenty of my family that do really horrible things and say really horrible things to people and then go to church and act all holy. And it's like, well, would you let somebody in your front door if they needed a place to stay?
They can toss a couple Hail Marys up.
Exactly. And be fine. Be forgiven.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. We got that out of the way. We're polished.
Right. Everything's, it's all okay now. Even fucking rape, like, rape is forgivable in Catholicism. And that's a joke to me. Really? To do that to somebody, does anybody actually really who hasn't been raped, do you ever question, do you ever realize what kind of traumatic experience that is to be taken in that way? To be that transforms your whole life. You never trust another human being again.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either, but I can only fathom, I can only fathom what that's like for someone to just be completely against their will, and that's something that you can go in and be forgiven for under Catholicism. Just it's different if you go for 40 years and you spend a long time in prison. You're like, damn, I really made a mistake. Then I could forgive somebody if they showed. But for you to just go in on Sunday and be like, swipe a card, here's my confession. I'm really, really sorry. And it's just a joke, man. It's just not cool. That goes right back to that entitlement that we have. And, religion certainly didn't originate here. Obviously, even Catholicism, we got the Vatican and everything else, but we Americans take it so serious. All these super religious sects, like the God hates fags people. Like what gives you the right?
Westboro cats.
Yeah. Like what gives you the right to do that? To soldiers returning from the war. Who cares if they're gay? Even if they didn't believe in what they were fighting for, they still had balls to go do it.
No, it's even worse than that. It's not that the soldiers are gay. It's because America tolerates gay people is the reason why. Like I used to work in Southern Illinois. They had a tornado up there. I helped out with some of the cleanup, and in the week that followed, the Westboro guys sent people up there and said God sent this tornado to kill these people that died, because there were several people that died, unfortunately, and decimated this small town in Illinois because America tolerates homosexuals.
Jesus. Wow. Like, what are you smoking? Where can I get some? What the hell is wrong with you?
No, they're taking the black smoke, man. You need the white smoke.
Right, yeah. Man, that's wild. Just that, like, once again, that sense of entitlement, the fact that you think that you are touched by this being in a way that you understand his motives, and oh man, that's wild. Yeah, I can't believe that. And things like that, those are the things that will break my heart when I see them. It's like, man, that immense amount of cruelty and humanity to look at somebody else and think that they deserve to die. And even in those moments when you're angry and you may want to kill somebody, when you come out of that, you realize if you were a good person that you were wrong, that you have no right to crush that creature, whatever it may be.
No, well, that even takes it past. That's next level.
Right.
Say what you want to about religion, okay, or excuse me, about Christianity,
right?
But these cats doing that sort of thing, they're all missing. What happened to the whole "ye who's without sin cast the first stone"?
Exactly.
And vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and all that. And love thy neighbor, and all that jazz. They missed that one. They're just like. They found some obscure passage that says God hates fags, and
that was their inference, and that's when they ran with it.
Yeah, so that's the one they remembered.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but religion breeds that. That's what it does. It breeds that. It breeds these type of people that think that they know what's right. And rather than questioning it and being insightful and skeptical. They just run with it. They just let it ride, and then that's what you get. Yeah. That's right there. That's why people hate America. We're fucking assholes. We're right all the time. We can't be wrong.
And that's why we in turn hate other countries too.
It's true. But why? Look at what it's creating. Like you said, it's creating the snowball effect where it's just breeding more and more hatred. Where in our time, kids are raised to not trust Muslims. Just like 30 years ago or 40, really the last 200 years, people were raised to not trust black people. And it's like, man, every type of people has bad people in it. Maybe, and once again, that's subjective, that's relative. You can't necessarily say someone's bad or good. It's all a personal agenda. But every type of people have people that make mistakes. Is a better way to put it. But you can't just say fuck everybody for that. Like the poor fucking Indian man that I saw running that damn gas station 5-6 years ago, and I swear, man, it about broke my heart just to walk in because I could feel it. I could feel it when I walked in, just to imagine what his day was like. Fucking asshole, whatever you want to call it. Maybe they were rednecks, maybe they were just ghetto white trash. It doesn't really matter. Coming in, just giving him hell, being rude for no reason, just to be rude because he's Muslim or Indian or whatever. And that's the thing, people don't even care to decide, don't even care to ask what you really are. And this man just looked so.
It's like I know a lot of Middle Eastern cats who come over here and they run businesses and they'll actually adopt an American name to fit in.
Right.
Which I get it. It is easier, but at the same time, I don't know.
What happened to the melting pot, you know?
Yeah. Like, I know a dude he calls himself Mike. He's a barber. Calls himself Mike. Ask him, his real name's Abdullah. He doesn't want to go by Abdullah. He goes by it to his family.
Mm-hmm.
But to everybody who comes into his business, he's Mike. And
That's
that's commonplace. That's not,
right.
Yeah.
And it's sad that people fear, just out of fear, they feel like
they don't have
that.
their own self-worth, and wherever they don't have any personal sovereignty now that they're in a different country.
Right. You know, this is going to sound crazy, but I would almost rather. I would like to say that I would. And I've had my trust shattered by people that I've loved. You know what I'm saying? Definitely many times. But I would rather have walked up to that guy, given him a damn hug, and told him that I loved him for who he was. And if he would have fucking pressed the damn button and blown me up right there, I'd rather that be that way than me to treat him like shit and keep on treating everyone else and look like him like shit for the rest of my life. Because fuck breeding that hatred. Fuck that. My son will never see me be that way to anybody. He will be taught to treat everyone with respect and not to just be blindly trustworthy, because that's not the way to go, because people sometimes are out to get you, but you got to give people a chance sometimes.
Personal merit.
Yeah, exactly. Give people a chance to prove themselves in some way before you just, and even then, don't just, I hate people that label and judge all the time. You know, I get caught up in that sometimes too, but man, you got to give people a chance.
It's easy to do. It's the girl mentality. You get swept up in it.
Yeah, that's true. It's, I don't know, it saddens me a lot, man. You know, it's one of those things where I'm the type of guy that I can't drive by a damn homeless person and not toss him something, even if I know he's going to go get a drink with it. Like, man, I just feel so bad because I just want to be able to help him. But I know I can hardly help myself. You know, I struggle sometimes putting food on the table for my son. So it's incredibly irresponsible for me to just throw money at somebody else. But it's hard for me to do it because it hurts me inside not to. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes me feel like less of a human. That I could look at another human who is essentially my brother in a way and not want to help them. And that's just something that a lot of people don't think of. You know, there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. There's nothing wrong at all. Some of the greatest minds are completely, they close themselves off to the world. But when you're so blocked off from society that you ignore the world's problems, you know, it goes right back to the indifference of good men. You know, like you have to, I would say, you have to be willing to help people. That is part of being human in today's world. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and every one of us think that we've all got it worse off than everyone else. And shit, us as Americans, we have it made compared to everybody else. You know,
I wouldn't say that. We may think we do.
Compared to say kids in Africa, for sure. We have a house. We have a house to go home to. We've got central air and heating. You know, obviously some people don't, but I'm just saying, as Americans, as modernized,
we're fortunate. More so fortunate than
we can walk down the street and buy food. You know, I can go to the gas station right now and buy a damn Reese's Fast Break and get fatter than hell. But a kid somewhere in Africa is going to wonder.
They're fighting for water.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, anything.
They're fighting for water.
Right, and it's just sad.
And could potentially die for trying to get that water.
Right, or lose a limb, or who knows what else. You know, and it's just, it's the world we live in, I suppose. But that's why I've tried to reshape my focus and change my priorities. You know, I've always been a kind-hearted person, but I realized recently, actually very recently, that I was wasting so much time. You know, like I love video games, I love doing all that, but I cut back on them severely because when I would get invested in video games, I would put off writing, and I love writing. I'd put off reading, and I love reading. You know, I'd put off getting involved in I put off stuff like this, you know, talking to somebody else about things that matter. And those, you know, like, I love video games. I probably won't ever stop playing them altogether. But if that's your end goal, to go home and smoke a blunt and just play video games till you pass out, like, sure, you may have a little fun, but you're not helping anybody. And I'm not going to condemn you for that. But man, there's got to come a time where people wake up and realize that we have got to make a difference. You have, what was it, Gandhi that said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Like, that is something that you have to believe in. And even if you don't ever do a damn thing but make a person happy every once in a while, then that's a good life to me. Like I said, like every once in a while I'll get a message on Facebook. Someone's like, man, don't stop writing. don't stop posting stuff because you make my day easier. Like, dude, that's the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all that really matters. You know, if you can
little victories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can make even if you don't change someone's perspective, but if you put a smile on their face, if you give them a reason to get up and work harder that day, that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, for whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
you got it, man. I think you're right on with it. Well, Jack, we're gonna wrap this particular show up, but we'll definitely do this again. Folks, you get a chance, you got something to say, check us out on Facebook. You can twatter us on Twitter or send us an email. That shit's written down somewhere where you can find it. I don't have the information in front of me, and frankly, I'm tired of trying to commit that shit to memory. So until next time, gray area.
This isn't how I planned it. This is not how I wanted this to go.